This video is sponsored by Card Kingdom. You can visit their store by using my referral link in the description below. Hi everyone, I'm Nita Hone, and it's time for another MTG Top 10, the series where I rank cards based on their historical performance at Magic's highest level of competition. Today, we're going to take a look at Stronghold. Lately, I've been going through Magic sets in chronological order, and I looked at Tempest last week. Stronghold is the second set in Tempest block, and it was released in February of 1998. As you'll see, it isn't quite as impressive as the set that preceded it, but it was still a set that had a significant impact on the history of competitive Magic. To be eligible for this list, a card had to receive its original printing in Stronghold. In all, that means 137 cards were eligible for this list, and in this video we'll be looking at the 10 that have left the biggest impact on competitive Magic. Before we get started, here's a quick reminder on how I score cards in these videos. A first tier top 8 is worth 2 points, this includes events like Pro Tours, and a second tier top 8 is worth 1 point. This includes events like regional championships. Alright, let's take a look at the top 10 cards from Stronghold. At number 10, it's Wall of Blossoms. For one generic and a green, it's a 0/4 with Defender that draws you a card when it enters the battlefield. That's a pretty nice rate for 2 mana, and every similar card that has been printed since the Wall also sees significant play, like Wall of Omens and Birth of Meletis. The Wall's body helps you live long enough to take advantage of any card advantage you might gain. Over the years, it has largely been played in control and combo decks, as it's an excellent card for slowing the game down and digging deeper into your deck. It doesn't have any points since 2005, but there aren't very many cards from the set that are close to passing it, so it may hold on to a spot on this list for the foreseeable future. At number 9, it's Mulch. For one generic and a green, Mulch is a sorcery that lets you reveal the top 4 cards of your library, and you can put all land cards revealed this way into your hand, and the rest into your graveyard. Most of the time when you use this, you end up drawing 2 cards and loading your graveyard at the same time, which is a pretty nice deal for 2 mana. Mulch didn't actually gain any points as a result of its original printing. Instead, it was a reprint in original Innistrad that led to it gaining all of its points. That format had a powerful Reanimator deck that was largely powered by Unburial Rites, and the fact that Mulch could allow you to dump a reanimation target and rights into your graveyard made it a great card for the deck. Mulch also got reprinted in Innistrad Crimson Vow, so it's actually in Standard right now, but so far it hasn't gained any points as a result of that reprint. At number 8, it is Volrath's Stronghold, which also happens to be the Stronghold the set gets its name from. This is a legendary land that can tap for 1 colorless, or you can pay 1 generic and a black to put a creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. While putting a card on top of your deck is significantly worse than adding it to your hand, it's a nice ability to have on a land. In the early game, Stronghold can give you mana like any other land, and then later, you can use it to make sure you draw the best creature in your graveyard every turn. It was played in standard recurring survival decks, which were all about the graveyard. The deck would use Recurring Nightmare and Survival of the Fittest together for all kinds of value, and by throwing the Stronghold in the mix, you even have a way to make sure you're going to draw a creature every turn to be used to tutor something up with Survival. It was also played in extended Reanimator decks, but also in a lot of other decks that were just black, just as a way to get some value out of the graveyard, with The Rock, a black-green mid-range deck, being the most frequent home for it in the format. More recently, it's been played in Legacy Alurin. This is a deck that generally tries to win using creature-based combos, and the Stronghold can help you get back pieces of the combo that your opponent might have destroyed. It doesn't have any points since 2017, but as I've already mentioned, this isn't a list that's going to get shaken up a whole lot going forward. At number 7, it is Nomads en-Kor. This 1/1 costs a single white mana, and it has an activated ability that lets you redirect the next 1 damage that would be dealt to the Nomads, and instead you do that damage to another target creature. That ability can be pretty obnoxious, as it can really mess up combat for your opponent. However, only its 2 standard points came in a deck that was actually interested in using the ability that way. Instead, it's gained all of its points in a deck called Cephalid Breakfast, an extended and legacy combo deck that takes advantage of the Outrider's ability to target creatures for free. The extended version of the deck ran both Daru Spiritualist and Cephalid Illusionist. With the Nomads in play, you could target Daru Spiritualist as much as you wanted to make its toughness however high you wanted, and then you could sacrifice it to Starlit Sanctum to win the game. This also works as a combo with Cephalid Illusionist, which can mill your entire library before you win with Sutured Ghoul and Dragon Breath. The Ghoul comes into play as a massive creature, and Dragon Breath gives it haste so you can swing for lethal right away. In both cases, the deck could win in the extreme early game, since the Nomad only costs a single mana, and the other 2 combo pieces cost 2 mana. The deck has lived on in Legacy, where only the Nomads plus Cephalid combo is used. These days, when the deck mills itself out, it puts 3 Narc Amoebas and a Thassa's Oracle in the graveyard, at which point you can cast Dread Return from the graveyard to win the game. Nomads en-Kor is in a really good spot in Legacy right now, and it has a very good chance at continuing to move up the list. At number 6, it's Fling. In addition to paying 1 generic and a red, Fling is an instant that also requires you to sacrifice a creature to cast it, and then it does damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to any target. We often call this type of effect a Fling effect because of this card. Obviously, this can allow you to do huge amounts of damage if you have a high power creature. Like Mulch, this is a card that didn't do much as a result of its original printing, but reprints have led to it gaining points in multiple formats. In both Modern and Pauper, it's been used in artifact-heavy decks alongside a Tog, which only needs a few artifacts to do lethal in the very early stage of the game alongside Fling. This was so good in Pauper that it got a Tog banned out of the format. It also saw some play in Eldraine Standard's adventure decks. These decks used both Beanstalk Giant and Fae of Wishes. The Fae could grab you Fling out of the sideboard, and obviously a huge Beanstalk Giant was amazing alongside Fling. Fling isn't active in any formats right now, but it is likely to get more reprints in the future. At number 4, it's Spike Feeder. This 0/0 creature costs 1 generic and 2 green, and enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. You can pay 2 generic and remove one of those counters to put a counter on target creature. You can also remove a counter to gain 2 life. It saw play in extended and standard toolbox decks where it could be searched up with Oath of Druids or Survival of the Fittest. Getting it in play against an aggro deck was a pretty great way of slowing them down until you could tutor up something that would win you the game. However, it has gained the most points in modern combo decks, where it's been combined with both Archangel of Thune and Heliod's Sun Crown to gain infinite life. They both give you a +1/+1 counter when you gain life, and obviously that means every time you remove a counter from your Spike Feeder to gain 2 life, he gets the counter right back, and you can just keep going from there. It's going to gain more points in modern going forward, but every card in front of it has a huge lead, and most of them are really active too, so I think number 4 is probably the best Spike Feeder we'll ever do. At number 4, it's Mox Diamond. This is the first of 3 cards to make the list that were all intended to be fixed versions of powerful cards from Alpha. These cards are certainly less powerful than the cards they are modeled after, but obviously they still end up being powerful cards that have been played a ton over the years because they're in the top 4 on this list. Mox Diamond is, of course, a powered down version of the Moxen from the Power 9. It's a 0 mana artifact that can tap for 1 mana of any color, but when it enters the battlefield you have to discard a land, otherwise you put it into the graveyard. Obviously, this means you have to 2-for-1 yourself in order to get a mana boost, and you even have to give up another source of mana. But yeah, the fact of the matter is that it's still a 0 mana card that gives you a permanent mana boost, and that's a powerful thing, even with the downside. It's gained most of its points in Legacy combo decks, where going down a card to combo off a full turn earlier is well worth giving up a card for. It's going to keep gaining points in Legacy, and it's likely to pass the number 3 card on the list in the future. For now though, that card is Shock, which is another Stronghold card intended to be a powered down version of an iconic Alpha card. In this case, Shock is a watered down lightning bolt. For 1 red mana, it does 2 damage to any target. While it generally isn't good enough in non-rotating formats where there are better options that do 3 damage for the same amount of mana, it has seen a bit of play in Pioneer mono-red aggro decks, and it gets reprinted frequently in Standard, and anytime that happens, it ends up seeing play. It has been stalled out since 2021 though, and without another Standard legal reprint, it's unlikely to hold off Mox Diamond in the long run. At number 2, it's Ensnaring Bridge. For 3 mana, this artifact doesn't allow creatures with power greater than the number of cards in your hand to attack. This is a powerful prison card that can really shut down any creature-based deck. In Extended, it was frequently a sideboard card, except in Tezzerator, an artifact-based prison deck that used Tezzeret the Seeker to search up artifacts that could shut the opponent down, and the Bridge certainly did that in many situations. The Bridge has also been used as a main deck card in prison decks in Modern, Legacy, and Vintage, in addition to being a frequent sideboard card in all of those formats. It's going to keep gaining points in the future, and it isn't entirely out of the question that it could eventually pass the number 1 card on the list, which is Mana Leak. This is the 3rd and final fixed version of a powerful Alpha card to make the list. Mana Leak is a weakened counterspell. It is easier to cast, but the text box is significantly weaker, since the opponent can pay 3 generic mana to ignore it altogether. Still, it does do enough to feel just like Counterspell most of the time. It gets the #1 slot on this list as a result of its multi-format success over a period of more than 2 decades. That massive time frame has allowed Mana Leak a ton of time to put up points. For a long time, it was the counterspell that Wizards always wanted in Standard with several core set reprints. As you would expect, it's mostly appeared in Control decks where counterspells tend to thrive, but Mana Leak is good enough that it found success in other formats too, putting up an impressive 47 points in Extended, where it was most frequently featured in Fairy decks, and it's being played in Modern right now, where it's been played in Blue-White Control decks since the format began in 2011. It even has a couple of points in Legacy Stoneblade, though it doesn't have any points in that format since 2015. The Eternal formats have access to many better counterspells, but Mana Leak is going to continue to put up points in Modern going forward. So, those are the 10 cards from Stronghold that have left the biggest impact on competitive Magic. If you want to own any of these powerful cards, check out the description where you can find a direct Card Kingdom link for each card that appeared in the video. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like it and share it so that others will enjoy it too. If you want to catch future videos, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. And if you want to catch up on past videos, including many more that look at specific sets, you should see a playlist on your screen shortly. Thanks for watching.